Hey everybody, this is Alan Hensley from Merriman Wealth Management, and today I am joined by Eric Neighbor, the CEO and founder of Guardian Savings. It is an app that allows parents to be the bank of mom and dad for their kids so they can keep track of their saving and their spending. And it really is just a great conversation starter for financial literacy, financial education, something that I'm really passionate about. And I'm really excited that I found this app and I was able to connect with Eric. So today we talk about financial literacy and our thoughts on how this app can be used to help kids learn about money management, and also just talk about financial literacy in general and how these skills are so important for kids to learn at an early age to set them up for success later in life. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. As always, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a message. Thanks so much. Have a great day. So I think just a really good place to start. I'd love for you just to introduce yourself, kind of what you're up to, who you are, what you're doing. That'd be a good place to kick this off.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Eric Neighbor. I am a co-founder and CEO of Guardian Savings, a financial literacy app for kids.
Awesome. And, the conversation today, I was just hoping to uh, have a chance for us to talk about, how we found each other, and then just kind of talk about our shared passion for financial literacy, and then maybe our thoughts on what we're doing to try and increase awareness, get educational materials out there. And then, yeah, just kind of, if you had questions for what I do, I'd love to go over that too. So,
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think personal finance and financial literacy are topics that aren't talked about enough. They're often taboo with a lot of families and among friend circles. And it's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to start the Guardian Savings app.
oh, very cool. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's something obviously in my line of work as a financial advisor, the inner family dynamics of talking about money, even within your own family, it's something that's kind of guarded. And there's this shield that goes up in terms of talking about money. And then, yeah, when you talk about friends talking about it, it's just, I don't know if it's fear or if it's a cultural thing. But what I've been reflecting on over the last 6 weeks, since most of us are stuck at home, and then if we're a parent, we're trying to wear this separate hat as a teacher, it's a really unique opportunity to have these conversations with kids.
Mhm.
And hopefully, this isn't just something that's happening between parents and kids. Maybe this is a conversation that makes its way into the education system. I'm taking some big swings here on where I hope this goes, but I'm just curious. Have you seen any uptick in traffic during this lockdown for your app?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen some pretty significant growth,
Cool.
whether it's due to an increased focus on marketing or whether it is the coronavirus driving people towards thinking about homeschooling their kids. I can't say for sure, but that's certainly a message that we've found that's successful in the market. Given that so much of teaching has shifted from teachers in schools to parents at home. And it's actually, financial literacy is actually a very unique area where there are certain topics like math and English where teachers are probably better suited than a lot of parents to teach those topics.
Yeah.
But when it comes to financial literacy, parents are in a unique place to teach their kids about the topic, given that so much of personal finance is about practice and the teaching the theories is don't get me wrong, it's very important, but it only goes so far. Because at the end of the day, I like to say that personal finance is like a contact sport. Like you can study it, and it's really important to study it in the classroom before you go get out there in the real world. But then when you're actually making spending decisions and making decisions about income, a lot of times it's a very emotional decision. And so, like, no matter how much you prepare for it rationally, there's a lot that goes into the psychology and helping kids make intelligent decisions rather than with their emotions.
And that's a really good point, because habits aren't learned by reading a book or something that learn in school. Habits are learned by doing. And
Yeah.
for a lot of us, and this is me personally speaking, good financial habits were something that I had to kind of learn on my own as I made the jump into adulthood. And, mistakes were made that hindsight's 2020. I feel like if I would have known some of these things as a kid, or even, through my teenage years, it would have put me in a better position when I, graduated from college and was like, oh, wait, I have to pay bills. What's going on now?
Yeah, you're not alone. And personal finance is unique where there are certain topics like we all know we should go to the gym, yet so many of us don't actually make that a habit. But with personal finance, it's also about knowing the right thing to do and then also making that a habit.
Yeah.
And so you make a good point there, Alan.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get too cheesy, but the power of compound interest. Obviously, the longer time frame you have to work with, the more powerful that is. And I
Yeah.
think that ties directly into the educational foundation. The sooner you
Yeah.
start, if we're talking about educating, elementary school kids about good money habits, that's just going to have the building blocks in place for more complex topics, or having those good habits for when they're in high school, in college, and then of course adulthood.
Yeah. I always like to think that, making mistakes is one of the greatest teachers for us. And as a parent, I think it can be really tough to let your kids make mistakes sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when it comes to spending decisions and money, because whatever toy they're looking at, a lot of times, they'll like it for 30 seconds if they get it, and then you as a parent know that they're not going to like it, or that there isn't necessarily the value there. But I think by spending a lot of time in helping your child with their spending decisions and letting them make mistakes, it will it invests in itself, because making a $5 mistake now when your son or daughter is 9 or 10 years old is a lot better than them making a $20,000 mistake when they're in their 20s.
Yeah, and it's all relative, but to that point, when the stakes are low, making a mistake, they're going to learn from it. And then hopefully, when the stakes are higher, they're going to reflect back on that earlier lesson. But I say it's all relative because, if my daughter buys something impulsively and spends $20, and it's like, oh, wait, I shouldn't have done that. $20, again, it's something that she'll live with, and it's relatively not that much. But to her, $20 is a lot of money. So in
Oh
her
yeah.
world, it's like, oh wait, that was a big mistake. So I feel like that's going to stick around a little bit longer, hopefully. But
Yeah.
but also just to that habit building conversation, what I've found, from being a dad, I'd have these conversations about, keeping track of your money, keeping track of where your savings and your allowance is being actually spent. And these lessons would happen kind of sporadically. They'd maybe be focused around the birthday when you get the money, or around holidays. And then, there's so much time in between those decision-making moments
Hmm.
where, let's just be honest, we live in a digital world. She has access to a phone, so she's comfortable with apps. She's comfortable with checking, her balances. So it's been really helpful. And just to talk about my experience a little bit on using the app with my daughter, having it at her fingertips has been uh, really helpful in the sense that we can have these conversations daily instead of every few months. So I think that's another really important key to good habit building, is you got to do it consistently,
Yeah.
not just here and there.
Yeah. And you touched on a good point around how cash is becoming less frequently used,
Yeah.
and how when kids potentially see their parents using a credit card, because they don't understand that there is money on that card, given that all
Right.
they know is the coins and dollar bills that they have in their piggy bank.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect there. And one of the most powerful teachers that we have as parents is through imitation. Kids love to imitate their parents,
Yep.
and do the things that the grown-ups do, right?
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for your daughter when she transitioned from having piggy banks and wallets of cash to having a digital cash?
Yeah. This is a conversation we've had before, but the idea of getting an allowance and getting money for birthdays and holidays. My daughter, she loved to put the money in different places. So number one, getting organized was a huge benefit. Just
Mhm.
really figuring out, how much money have you saved over the last few years. So number one, that was super helpful. But what has been really impactful is when she does see something she wants to buy. We're talking about an 8-year-old. It's usually an impulsive need. So when she sees that, she's like, Dad, I really want to buy this. And it's like, okay, great. In the past would be like, okay, you're going to have to spend some of your money. And she's like, yeah, fine, whatever. I just want it. I want it. Now we have to go through the exercise of being like, look, here's the app. Here's how much you have. If you spend it, it's going to go down that amount. Number one, seeing it go down, that ties it to reality for her. That makes her second guess, wait, do I need this toy? So first off, just seeing the balance go down, that's really impactful. But secondly, I've had these conversations around interest with her that has been fantastic. Again, I'm a financial advisor. I geek out on this stuff, so I might not be the perfect demo for this. But when we talk about interest, and then when she actually sees it go into her account, so she saw her balance go up, I think it was like 97 cents last month. And she was like, wait, I didn't have to do anything to get this. Like those words is music to my ears, because she really learned what this means. And then she realizes, wait, if I spend my money, I'm going to get less interest. So that like kind of one-two punch was what made it sink in, I think, to the fact where she is going to start second guessing a lot of her spending decisions.
That's really awesome to hear. And that is totally the intent behind like the interest feature, among other features that we have in the app. Ultimately, what I see a lot of times is like parents telling their kids that they have to save a certain amount or do whatever it is they want with their money. But I think that some of these lessons are best learned when the kids actually decide to do them for themselves on their own without being told to do so. Yep. And I think it's a really magical learning moment. Hearing you describe that moment with your daughter, where she sees the interest coming in and it's starting to factor into her decisions. Oh, if I spend, this $20 now and at a 20% interest rate, I'm going to miss out on $4 of income for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
And it's pretty magical to see the wheels turning when kids are making those types of decisions themselves and understanding relatively advanced concepts like interest that unfortunately too many people don't really understand. There's a lot of opportunity costs to a lot of people's personal finance decisions through these more advanced topics like interest.
And so opportunity cost, that is a topic that I'm really excited to bring up with her next. And that made me realize that, it's building blocks. You've got to start somewhere, and then you can kind of work your way up to more complex topics, more, forethought into, oh, wait, this is going to impact me next month. And then hopefully, we can start looking at next year. And then, obviously I want her to start to conceptualize really long-term effects, which will then allow me to have more complex conversations around not just, budgeting, but, everything that comes with investing and financial planning. So yeah, I'm getting really excited about, all right, once she grasps this concept, then we get to talk about the next thing, but you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I love it. And I think one of the largest opportunity costs that most people miss in our country, sadly, is, emergency savings and retirement funds. Those are very long-term things or used for risks that don't really seem to ever materialize. And so people will often sacrifice long-term plans or emergency savings funds for these short-term desires and fleeting wants. And if there's anything that the coronavirus has taught us, it's that so many people are vulnerable because they aren't appropriately saving for emergencies.
Yep.
I know that experts like yourself probably recommend somewhere between 3 to 6 months. And I think by teaching your kids how to delay their gratification and do a little bit more long-term planning and focus on wealth building, that'll set them up really well for when they're adults to be able to have emergency savings and actually start putting money away towards retirement, put money towards retirement in their 20s rather than in their 40s or 50s when there's a huge game of catch up.
Yeah. And that's, that's obviously something I've been thinking about a lot lately. In this crisis, in a lot of respects, is unprecedented. There's a lot of things that are different about it, but there's a lot of things that are similar to previous recessions. It came out of nowhere. This is a black swan type of an event. These types of quote unquote black swan crises, what I tell all my clients or anyone that I'm talking with, it's never possible to predict the unexpected, but you can always prepare for the unexpected.
Yeah.
And that's, that just comes into financial planning. The reason that you save, the reason that you have 3 to 6 months savings, it's not because, on this date in 14 months, there's going to be a market downturn. No, you just don't know when. You don't know why. So having the kind of the foundation built at a young age of, I need to have money saved, and not even questioning it. Hopefully when she's 18 or in her early 20s, she's like, all right, I always need to have this amount saved. And if she doesn't even know why at that point, she just knows she needs it. Like that's enough in terms of
totally
having that financial literacy built, at least at that stage.
And that's something that sadly a behavior that I saw that people did not have when I graduated from college. When I was 22, I saw a lot of my friends living paycheck to paycheck because they were living for the weekend, not really thinking about like emergency savings or not even putting more than like 3% towards their retirement. Right. When you make those investments in your 20s, compounding interest takes away, and you're set up so much better than you are if you decide otherwise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, the idea of knowing what compound interest is by the time you're 10 years old. Just think of how far ahead you are of your peers. And I talked with some of my peers, like, hey, did you learn any of this in school? I'm just trying to gauge, like, for my world, none of this happened at any of my schooling. And a couple of my friends said, actually I took a home ec class and they taught us how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's better than nothing, but that's outdated. That's not going to give you those real world habit building skills. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in terms of spreading financial literacy, and apps like this are a perfect tool for that.
Yeah. Well, something that too often isn't taught in home ec either is some of the more advanced financial topics like investing in stocks and bonds. So I was really drawn to the book that you made, where you were able to explain these topics that a lot of adults, frankly, feel a little bit scared about. You'll say words like equity and IPO, and people get kind of terrified because they don't know what those things mean, and they seem really complicated, so they don't want to learn them.
And that's where my passion for financial literacy, financial education, is removing fear from the topic. Because you're absolutely right. When you start bringing up quote unquote complex topics, paralysis by analysis kicks in as like a knee-jerk reaction. This shield goes up. It's like, well, I don't want to talk about that because I don't know anything about that, and it freaks me out. Well, if we can educate to the point where it's like, no, I know what that is, and then they can apply it to their personal life, to their own savings plans. They'll start putting more in their 401k, or they'll stop spending on, discretionary stuff each month. So it's all about education, because that removes the fear. And then once the fear is gone, we can have conversations around good habit building. And it starts early. When I wrote this children's book with my daughter, I knew these topics were a little over the head. We're talking about what is a stock, what is a bond, with a 5, 6, 7-year-old. But you're absolutely right. I jokingly, but also not jokingly, wrote this book for parents to learn something when they're reading it to their young child. So, hopefully it's a conversation starter, number one. And then number two, it is going to remove some of that anxiety that comes with talking about money. It's not going to happen overnight, but if it's something that is repeatable, hopefully it sinks in over time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you'll see a lot of people where their financial position is such where it's, cash under the mattress, when they're just missing out on all types of gains, whether it's invest in the stock market or bond market. So I really love that you created this book in a way that's easily digestible for kids. I think it's something that complements more like practice-based applications like the Guardian Savings app that I built.
And the last point I just want to make is, in this world of this 24-hour news cycle, there's constantly information being thrown at us about the stock market, about the economy, about everything that's happening. And, filtering through all that noise to finding something that's actually going to impact, my financial plan or my retirement goals,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, people should tune that out. But in the society that we live, we're almost encouraged to make these knee-jerk emotional decisions based on what we're seeing,
Right.
put in front of us constantly. So, the idea of what you brought up earlier, delayed gratification, it'd be great for a kid to learn that, but it'd be great for an adult to remember, oh yeah, we can slow down a little bit, and let's think of the long term and not focus so much on what happened in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah. So one of the features in the Guardian Savings app that I'm really excited about is the ability for kids to segment their money into different jars.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that we designed to help kids set aside money for longer term goals as well as shorter term things, maybe make a budget or create a named goal with that in mind, to help people focus on, what's really important. Because when you have an account that's just a 12-digit number,
Right.
you don't really feel so bad about withdrawing money from that to go out to a fancy restaurant. But if that account is named, new bike,
Mm-hmm.
your kids are going to realize, oh, I don't like, is this new toy really worth, taking money out of my new bike fund? Like, I don't think so.
Right.
Helps keep people focused and remember what is actually important to them, and what their plans are, where they've thought through what will actually make them happy, and rationally allocate their spending that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about the ability to have these jars is, in a lot of respects, emotions get in the way of making good financial decisions. But if you use your emotions for good, and you do what I would call mental accounting of saying, hey, this jar is for this goal, for a new bike, then when you go to take money out of that, your emotions kick in and say, hey, you know what, that's actually for XYZ. And that's where you can kind of flip the script a little bit and actually purposely react on your emotions. But as long as you prepared and you planned with creating.
Yeah. I think the classic negative example, the inverse of what you're suggesting, is a lot of times if people are at the casino and they're up, you don't feel bad losing the house money that you've already won. But in reality, taking the emotions out of it, the money is money, and it is just as much a loss as if you were losing the money that you just withdrew from the ATM.
Yeah, exactly. Those biases are, it's sometimes hard to objectively see that when it's yourself, but you can put, you can use an app, for example, to kind of cut that off.
Well, that actually reminds me of another feature I wanted to mention and get your overall reaction to. When kids want to withdraw money in the app, as you know, the app facilitates parents being the bank of mom, dad,
right.
And the app is the ledger. But what we have kids do when they're making the ledger entry is they have to differentiate, what is this for? Is this for a need or a want? And the thinking behind adding this feature is that by forcing kids to think about whether it's a need or a want, it helps strengthen the need versus want differentiation skills, and also causes you to think a little bit more about what it is that you're about to do, rather than just having your eyes glued to whatever the object is that you want to purchase, not necessarily thinking about the financial cost.
Yeah, and that's something that has sparked a lot of really good conversations. So, my daughter found something that she just had to have. We talked through it. It was a relatively small purchase, and then she went to the screen, and it makes her choose, and she put need, and I got to be the dad and be like, all right, let's talk about what a need is. This is something that is necessary in your life. And she was really, she took a really mature response. She's like, yeah, you're right, Dad. I don't actually need this. And she moved it over to want. And that concept kind of sunk in. But I don't know how I would have had that conversation if she was just like, Dad, give me some money out of your wallet. All right, here it is.
Yeah, I
That
love that.
conversation, yeah. So it was good. She still bought it, and she earned it. She deserved to buy something. But I just love the fact that, yeah, she has to have something selected
Yeah.
before she takes the
Well,
money.
yeah, there's a little bit more thinking going on there. And it could be like, in this instance, it sounds like she truly did want it, but I imagine in the future, there'll be instances where she thinks about it and thinks, well, this actually isn't really worth the opportunity cost there. So,
Right. And what I love about the app is it is a third party objective tool. A lot of emotions can get brought up when we're talking about money, talking about spending. And if I'm dad saying, hey, you shouldn't buy that, what's going to happen if you tell a kid they shouldn't do something?
right.
But we have the app to say, look, this is the impact. This is what's going to happen. This isn't dad saying it. This is Guardian Savings encouraging you to think about this purchase, which
Yeah.
from a parenting standpoint, that's a huge, huge helpful tool.
Yeah. Well, too often I think you see parents at the grocery store or the mall, and kids are just tugging at the shirt saying like, Mom, can we have that? Like, Dad, can we have, how about this thing? Like, how about that?
Yep.
And I think that by enabling your kids to have their own money and telling them, look, you can buy whatever you want with your money, like within reason,
Sure.
you're in charge of those prioritization decisions. And
Yep.
ultimately that's another skill that we really want to help kids refine, is figuring out what it is that truly makes them happy and how do they prioritize of the 100 things that they see in the store that they do want. What are the top 3 that they'll choose?
Yeah.
So
And yeah, what I'm excited about is the next step is when she finds something that she must have, but it's more than what she has right now.
yeah,
Creating those savings goals, that's kind of the next step. So,
yeah.
Eric, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me about the app. I'm excited. I'm using it. I'm telling everyone I know about it. So hopefully this helps spread the word of financial literacy. I think you're doing a great job. Your team has created an amazing app. So just, yeah, I'm glad you're able to take some time to talk with me today.
Really appreciate it, Alan. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, man. Have a good day.